When talking about United States energy consumption, reality can be lost in the numbers. It can be difficult to contextualize the 3,800,000,000,000 kilowatt hours of energy we consume, or the 56% of US greenhouse gas emissions released from residential and transportation energy consumption. Such statistics can leave you scratching your head, but if I told you your personal energy consumption is equivalent to the burning of 15,000 pounds of coal a year, the picture is quite a bit easier to imagine. If coal powered everything, each one of us in this audience would use the equivalent of 41 pounds of coal a day, and your entire body weight in just a few days. By limiting your energy footprint, you can lower these unsustainable numbers. Thank you.
How much energy did we use 100 years ago versus roughly 50 years ago versus today? In 1908, energy consumption was far lower than today. At roughly 15 quadrillion BTU by 1908, the energy consumption in the US only continues to rise. By 1948, the consumption was at 32 quadrillion, and by 2015, it has reached an alarming 96 quadrillion BTU. Today, we use a smaller percentage of coal than we did 100 years ago, but through these graphs, we can tell that natural gas is on the rise.
The energy issue in the United States and what we do about it is a pivotal concern for our future as United States citizens and as residents of this planet. One thing we can do is conserve energy use. To show what conserving energy can do, let's say the US decided to conserve power by banning toasters. How much energy would this theoretically save us? According to the International Houseware Association, 80% of American households have toasters. This means that roughly 100,976,000 households have toasters. The average toaster is used for 0.2 hours a day, running at 0.04 kilowatt hours. By multiplying the households with the toasters by the average use by the kilowatt hours used, America theoretically uses 807,000 kilowatt hours of energy on toasters each day, and 24,234,000 kilowatt hours a month. If this use was eliminated, that would free up enough energy to power 3,371 Massachusetts homes for an entire year, for every month of America not using toasters.
In general, what is our total CO2 production like in the US? How about in Massachusetts? In total, the United States produced over 5 billion metric tons of CO2 in 2015. We are one of the largest producers of CO2 in the world, second only to China, that produced over 10 billion metric tons. During this year, Massachusetts produced 65.3 million metric tons of CO2. This placed us in the middle of the United States CO2 production.
How does Columbia Gas compare to other non-municipal natural gas providers in Massachusetts? NiSource, which is the parent company of Columbia Gas and NIPSCO, supplies 3.5 million homes in 7 states. Berkshire Gas delivers natural gas and related services to over 40,000 customers in 20 western Massachusetts cities and towns. It is a part of Avangrid, which operates natural gas distribution in 4 states. Blackstone Gas provides for Blackstone and South Bellingham and parts of Wrentham. Eversource provides natural gas to 51 eastern Massachusetts towns and cities, and 73 towns and cities in Connecticut. Liberty Utilities serves 290,000 customers in 6 states. The national grid covers 3 states and parts of the UK. Unitil supplies gas for 3 states. And lastly, Colonial Gas, which provides for Chelmsford and the surrounding areas and a little bit of New Hampshire.
How would Washington State's proposed carbon fee affect the environment? Washington State voted on a carbon fee in November 2018. This ballot initiative would require major polluters like fossil fuel companies to pay $15 per metric ton of carbon they release into the atmosphere. The state estimates that this levy would generate roughly $2.2 billion in the first 5 years. 70% of this money would be invested in clean energy and clean air. 25% would go to maintaining water sources and forests, and 5% to helping communities throughout the state prepare and adapt to climate change. The Washington State Department of Ecology predicts that by 2020, Washington would reduce its emissions by 15% below 2005 levels, 36% by 2035, and 57.5% by 2050, or 70% below expected emissions that year. Although emissions in Washington State only account for about 0.3% of global carbon emissions, this ballot initiative could catalyze climate action internationally.
We talk about the cloud a lot when thinking about how the internet runs, but it's easy to forget that it takes real energy to keep everything online, and that means that using the internet does produce carbon emissions. Every time you search for something on Google, about 0.2 grams of CO2 are released into the atmosphere. In comparison, the average US car emits 360.7 grams of CO2 per mile, or 5,280 feet. For every 1 foot, about 0.068 grams are released. If you multiply that by 3, you get roughly 0.2 grams. This means that doing a search on Google emits about as much CO2 as driving a car 3 feet.